The first time I slipped a diamond ring onto her finger, she looked at me like I had just stolen the future she had spent years trying to protect. Her silver eyes did not sparkle with joy. They trembled with fear. "You know this is only temporary," she whispered. I smiled because I was supposed to. Of course. Those two words became the biggest lie I had ever told. My name is Rowan Ashcroft. I am 28 years old, an alpha born into one of the oldest business families in the country. My parents believed every important decision should benefit the family name. Love was a luxury. Marriage was a contract. Emotions were expensive distractions. I agreed with them. At least I thought I did. Until I met Iris. She was 25, an Omega with soft brown hair, warm amber eyes, and the quiet confidence of someone who had survived more storms than anyone deserved. She worked as a legal translator at the immigration office, helping families who struggled to understand complicated documents that could change their lives forever. She never raised her voice. She never asked for sympathy. She simply kept saving people one page at a time. The first time we met, I almost got her fired. I had arrived furious after one of my company's international employees had their residency application delayed because of missing paperwork. I demanded answers from everyone behind the front desk. Most people became nervous around dominant alphas. Not Iris. She calmly picked up the folder from my hands and looked through every page. "You missed 3 required signatures." I did not. "You did. I have assistants for this." She looked up. "Apparently you need better ones." Several people nearby tried very hard not to laugh. For the first time in years, someone had spoken to me without fear. I should have hated her. Instead, I spent the rest of the day thinking about those amber eyes. 3 months later, fate decided we would meet again. Only this time, everything was different. I found her sitting alone outside the immigration building after sunset. She looked exhausted. There were dark circles beneath her eyes, and the folder in her lap had been squeezed so tightly that the edges had bent. Without thinking, I walked over. "You look terrible." She laughed softly. "You always know exactly what to say." I sat beside her. "What happened?" She stayed silent for nearly a minute. Then she finally spoke. "My visa renewal was denied." I frowned. "But you work here." "I do." "Then why?" "Because my previous sponsor company dissolved during an investigation. It was not my fault, but the law does not care whose fault it was." She stared at the street ahead. "I have 30 days before I have to leave." Something inside my chest tightened. Leave. The word sounded wrong. This city somehow felt impossible without her in it. "There has to be another option." "There is." She smiled sadly. "I could marry a citizen." I blinked. She immediately laughed. "Relax. I am not proposing." "I know." The silence returned. Cars passed. People hurried home. Neither of us moved. Finally, I asked, would it actually work? She nodded. "A legal marriage or engagement with proof of commitment could allow me to remain while everything is reviewed." I looked at her hand. Small. Elegant. Empty. An idea appeared in my mind so suddenly that it frightened me. It was ridiculous. Completely unreasonable. Exactly the kind of decision I never made. "What if," I began slowly, "we pretend?" She turned toward me. "What?" "We announce an engagement." She stared at me as though I had lost my mind. "You cannot be serious." "I am." "Your family would never agree." "They do not need to." "You barely know me." "I know enough." She looked away again. "I cannot ask that of you." "You are not asking." "People will believe we are in love. They only need to believe it for a while. And when it is over." Her question lingered between us. I had no answer, because I had not thought that far. She stood and brushed invisible dust from her coat. This conversation never happened. "Iris." She stopped walking. "If I say yes," she said quietly, "everything changes." "I know. You could lose your reputation." "I have survived worse." She laughed without humor. "No, Rowan. You have not." Then she walked away. I watched her disappear into the evening crowd, convinced I had ruined whatever strange friendship had begun between us. The next morning, my assistant entered my office carrying a small envelope. "There is a letter for you." No sender. No company logo. Only my name written in elegant handwriting. Inside was a single sentence. If you are still willing to pretend, meet me at the old botanical garden at 6 tonight. Bring a ring. I read the note 3 times. Then I looked at the clock. For the first time in my carefully organized life, 6 o'clock could not arrive fast enough. A decision made in desperation was about to become the beginning of a story neither of us would ever be able to escape. At exactly 6 o'clock, I stood beneath the glass roof of the old botanical garden with a velvet box hidden inside my coat pocket. The garden had once belonged to a wealthy alpha family before it became a public sanctuary filled with towering palms, flowering vines, and quiet stone paths. Evening sunlight filtered through the glass ceiling, painting everything in warm shades of gold. It should have felt peaceful. Instead, every passing second tightened the knot in my chest. I had negotiated billion-dollar contracts without breaking a sweat. Waiting for one Omega to arrive was somehow far more terrifying. I checked my watch again. 6:02. Then I heard footsteps. I turned. Iris walked through the entrance wearing a simple cream-colored dress beneath a light brown coat. She carried no handbag, no folder, no stack of documents. For the first time since I had met her, she looked like someone who had allowed herself to breathe. She smiled, though it barely reached her eyes. You actually came. You doubted me. I hoped you would change your mind. I did not. She stopped a few steps away. So. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally, she laughed. This is already a terrible fake engagement. It has been less than a minute. I know. The sound of her laughter eased something inside me. I reached into my pocket and opened the velvet box. Inside rested a delicate white gold ring with a single diamond that caught the evening light. Her smile disappeared. You bought a real ring. I could hardly use a plastic one. Rowan. It is only for appearances. She looked at the ring for so long that I wondered if she would refuse. Instead, she quietly asked, was this expensive? I did not check. You never check. I suppose not. She sighed. You are impossible. So I have been told. Another silence settled between us. Then she slowly extended her left hand. My fingers brushed against hers. The moment the ring slipped into place, the entire world seemed to hold its breath. Neither of us expected the strange warmth that spread through the bond between an alpha and an omega standing so close together. It was not a mating bond. Not even close. Yet something invisible seemed to settle between us. Her breathing became uneven. So this, she whispered, staring at the ring, is what pretending feels like. I wished I knew the answer. A loud clap interrupted us. We both turned. An elderly woman stood several meters away holding a camera. Oh my goodness, she exclaimed. Congratulations. Before either of us could explain, she had already taken 3 photographs. You make such a beautiful couple. Iris froze. I smiled politely. Thank you. The woman waved happily before disappearing down another path. Iris looked horrified. She thinks we are actually engaged. That was the idea. I know. She covered her face with both hands. This is becoming real far too quickly. It has to. She lowered her hands. There are rules. Rules. If we are doing this, we need rules. I am listening. She raised one finger. No lying unless it protects the agreement. A reasonable start. Second, no taking advantage of alpha and omega instincts. I would never. I know. That is why I am saying it out loud. I nodded. Agreed. She raised another finger. Third, the moment my visa situation is solved, we end this peacefully. My chest tightened again. Peacefully. Such a simple word. It somehow sounded painful. I agree. She watched me carefully. You hesitated. I was thinking. About what? Nothing important. She did not believe me. I could tell. Before she could ask another question, my phone rang. It was my mother. I answered. Hello. Rowan, where are you? Out. I need you home immediately. Why? There is someone waiting to meet you. I did not agree to a meeting. You will. I have plans. Her voice became colder. This concerns your future wife. I felt Iris glance toward me. My future what? The daughter of the Everett family. We have been discussing this for months. I never agreed. You do not have to agree. I am not coming. Silence. Then my mother spoke with dangerous calm. If you refuse, do not expect this family to support your position as chief executive much longer. The call ended. I stared at the screen. Iris had heard enough. They arranged your marriage. It appears so. You should go. I am not going. You could lose everything. I know. She looked genuinely troubled. You should not risk your career because of me. It is not because of you. She folded her arms. Then why? I looked directly into her amber eyes. Because I am tired of everyone deciding how I should live. For the first time, she had no reply. The evening breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers between us. Then she did something unexpected. She stepped closer. Much closer. Close enough that anyone watching would assume we were already in love. She gently adjusted the collar of my coat. If we are pretending, she whispered, we should at least look convincing. Before I could respond, another camera flashed. 2 young tourists stood nearby. Sorry, one of them said. You both looked adorable. Iris buried her face against my shoulder. I could not tell whether she was laughing or hiding. Maybe both. Without thinking, I rested one hand lightly against her back. She stiffened for only a second. Then, very slowly, she relaxed. Neither of us noticed the tall man standing outside the garden gates. He lowered a professional camera after capturing several photographs of us together. He immediately picked up his phone. I have them, he said. A woman's calm voice answered. Excellent. The engagement appears genuine. It will not stay genuine for long. What should I do next? Nothing. She laughed softly. Let them fall in love first. The call ended. The photographer looked once more toward the garden. Neither Iris nor I had any idea that someone had already turned our harmless lie into the opening move of a far more dangerous game. The photographs spread across the city before sunrise. By the time I reached my office the next morning, every business group chat, every society magazine, and every gossip column seemed to have the same headline. Ashcroft heiress secretly engaged. I had expected rumors. I had not expected the entire city to believe them overnight. My assistant, Clara, walked into my office carrying a stack of newspapers. She placed them on my desk without saying a word. Every front page showed the same image. Iris standing close enough to adjust my collar. My hand resting gently against her back. The ring shining between us. Clara cleared her throat. So, should I start planning an engagement party? I rubbed my forehead. Absolutely not. She smiled. I have worked for you for 5 years. This is the happiest photograph I have ever seen of you. I look exactly the same. No. She pointed at the picture. You are smiling with your eyes. I looked again. She was right. That realization unsettled me more than the headlines. Across the city, Iris had a much worse morning. The moment she entered the immigration office, conversations stopped. Every pair of eyes turned toward the ring on her finger. One of her coworkers gasped. You are engaged. Another hurried over. To Rowan Ashcroft. A third whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. I thought she hated wealthy alphas. Iris remained calm. She smiled politely. We have been seeing each other privately. The lie left her lips more naturally than she expected. Someone squealed with excitement. When is the wedding? We have not decided yet. Another question came immediately. How did he propose? She nearly laughed. We prefer to keep that private. For the rest of the morning, no one allowed her to work in peace. She answered endless questions with carefully chosen half-truths. Each answer made the fake engagement feel slightly more real. By lunchtime, she escaped to the rooftop just to enjoy a few minutes of silence. The door opened behind her. She turned. It was me. You look exhausted, I said. She laughed. So do you. I handed her a coffee. I thought you might need this. She accepted it. You remembered my favorite. You always order the same one. You noticed. I notice more than people think. She looked away before taking a sip. Neither of us spoke for a while. The city stretched beneath us, alive with traffic and distant voices. Finally, she broke the silence. My supervisor congratulated me. I received a call from my grandmother asking why she learned about my engagement from the newspaper. How did that go? She asked why I waited so long. Iris laughed so hard she nearly spilled her coffee. I am sorry. It is your fault. It is absolutely your fault. We continued laughing until the rooftop door opened again. An older woman stepped outside carrying several files. She froze the moment she saw us. Oh, I recognized her immediately. Director Evelyn Hart, the head of the immigration department. She smiled warmly. I did not mean to interrupt. You are not, Iris replied. The director glanced at the ring. So the rumors are true. They are. I am happy for you. Something about her expression seemed thoughtful. Almost too thoughtful. She wished us a pleasant afternoon before leaving. The moment the door closed, Iris frowned. That was strange. What? She looked relieved. Perhaps she likes happy endings. Iris shook her head slowly. No. Then what? I do not know. A strange feeling settled over her, as though someone had just confirmed something she had already suspected. That evening, I finally returned to the Ashcroft estate. The mansion looked exactly as it always had. Perfect gardens. Perfect marble walls. Perfect silence. Inside the main dining room, my parents were waiting. So was another woman. She stood gracefully as I entered. Tall. Elegant. Dark hair tied neatly behind her shoulders. She wore confidence as naturally as breathing. My mother smiled. Rowan, I see you ignored my request. I never agreed to it. The woman extended her hand. I am Celeste Everett. I did not shake it. I know who you are. She lowered her hand without appearing offended. I have also seen today's newspapers. I imagine everyone has. She studied me for several seconds. Then she smiled. So the engagement is real. It is. My father leaned forward. End it. No. It damages years of planning. I do not care. My mother's voice remained perfectly calm. You will. I will not. She folded her hands. The Omega is unsuitable. Something inside me snapped. Do not speak about her that way. Silence filled the room. Even I had not expected those words to come out so quickly. My father stood. You are choosing a stranger over your own family. I am choosing my own decisions. Celeste quietly watched the argument unfold. Then, unexpectedly, she spoke. May I ask one question? No one answered. She looked directly at me. Do you love her? The room became completely still. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Because I genuinely did not know. I barely knew Iris. Yet every instinct inside me rejected the idea of anyone hurting her. Celeste smiled sadly. That hesitation tells me everything. What does it tell you? You are already falling. Before I could answer, she picked up her handbag. I think this meeting is over. She walked toward the door. As she reached it, she paused. Without turning around, she quietly said, For what it is worth, I hope she deserves the way you looked at her in those photographs. The door closed behind her. No one spoke for several moments. Then my mother calmly placed another envelope on the dining table. What is this? She slid it toward me. Information. I opened it. Inside were several printed pages. Every page contained details about Iris. Employment history. Financial records. Medical reports. Old addresses. Even childhood photographs. Someone had investigated her. My hands tightened around the papers. Then one final page slipped onto the floor. It was a police report from 6 years earlier. Across the top, in bold letters, were the words that made my blood run cold. Primary witness. Victim deceased. And beneath that, statement given by Iris Holloway. I stared at the page, unable to breathe. The woman who smiled so gently. The woman who hated conflict. The woman pretending to be my fiancé had witnessed someone's death. I did not sleep that night. The police report remained open on my desk long after midnight. The first page revealed almost nothing. The names of several people had been removed. The location had been hidden. Entire paragraphs were covered by black ink. Only a few details remained untouched. Witness, Iris Holloway. Age at the time, 19. Victim confirmed deceased. Case officially closed. I read those lines over and over. Nothing explained how a quiet Omega translator had become involved in a death investigation. Nothing explained why my family had access to sealed records. That question disturbed me even more. Someone had gone out of their way to dig into Iris's past. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Iris. Good morning. Coffee before work. Same cafe. 8 o'clock. I looked at the time. It was already 6. I had 2 hours. I considered asking her about the report immediately. Instead, I closed the file. If there was a story behind those pages, I wanted to hear it from her, not from people searching for reasons to destroy her. The cafe was nearly empty when I arrived. Iris was already sitting by the window. She wore a light blue sweater, her hair loosely tied back, the engagement ring catching the morning sunlight every time she lifted her coffee cup. She smiled the moment she saw me. "You're late. By 2 minutes." I counted. I noticed. She laughed softly. That laugh made the weight of the police report feel even heavier. "You look tired," she said. "So do you." I spent half the night answering messages. I spent half the night arguing with my parents. Who won? No one. She nodded knowingly. I expected that. The waitress brought my coffee. For several minutes, we talked about ordinary things. Work. Traffic. The weather. It felt strangely comfortable. Too comfortable. Eventually, I reached into my briefcase. "I need to ask you something." Her smile faded. "What is it?" I placed the report on the table. She looked down. The moment her eyes found the first page, every trace of color disappeared from her face. Her fingers froze around the coffee cup. "Where did you get this?" "My family." She remained silent. "Iris." She slowly closed the folder. I hoped I would never see that again. "So it is real." "Yes." "What happened?" She stared out the window. People hurried past without noticing the silence that had settled between us. Finally, she spoke. "When I was 19, I worked nights at a bookstore." I listened carefully. "One evening, a man came in looking for someone." She stopped. Her breathing became uneven. "He was angry." "Who was he?" "I never learned his name." She swallowed. "There was another Omega working with me. A friend. My best friend." Her voice almost broke. The man started shouting. "Why?" He believed she had reported him for something. "What happened next?" "I called the police." She closed her eyes. "But they arrived too late." I felt my chest tighten. "He attacked her." The cafe suddenly felt much colder. I tried to stop him. She looked down at her hands. There was blood everywhere. "Iris." I could not save her. A tear slipped down her cheek before she quickly wiped it away. I gave my statement. The man was arrested. The case ended. But my friend never came home. Neither of us spoke. The noise of the cafe faded into the background. I finally reached across the table. Very gently, I placed my hand over hers. "You should have never had to go through that." She looked at me. "You are not afraid." Should I be? My parents always believed no alpha would want an Omega who had experienced something so terrible. They were wrong. She stared at me for several seconds. Then she quietly whispered, "Thank you." Later that afternoon, I returned to the office. Clara walked in carrying another envelope. No return address. Again. I opened it. Inside were several photographs. Not of Iris. Of me. Leaving my office. Meeting Iris. Driving home. Standing outside the cafe. Someone had been following us. At the bottom was a handwritten message. "She has lied to you about much more than one night." I immediately called Iris. No answer. Again. Nothing. A third time. Straight to voicemail. My heartbeat quickened. I grabbed my keys. Clara stood. "Where are you going?" "To find my fiancé." The word left my mouth naturally. I barely noticed. Meanwhile, Iris had just finished work. The parking lot was almost empty. She unlocked her car. A familiar voice spoke behind her. "I wondered how long it would take before you recognized me." She froze. slowly turning around. Standing beside a black luxury sedan was a woman she had not seen in 6 years. Tall, perfectly dressed, cold gray eyes, no expression. "I thought you left the country," Iris whispered. The woman smiled. "I did. Why are you here?" "To finish something that should have been finished long ago." Iris took one careful step backward. "You should leave." "I cannot." The woman glanced at the engagement ring. "So, it really is Rowan Ashcroft. What do you want?" The woman reached into her handbag and removed an old photograph. She handed it to Iris. It showed two smiling young women standing outside a bookstore. One was 19-year-old Iris. The other was the friend who had died. On the back, someone had written a single sentence. "You remember what really happened, do you not?" Iris's hands began to shake. The woman leaned closer. "You never told the police the whole truth." Then she smiled. "And if Rowan learns what you hid that night, he will never look at you the same way again." Iris stood frozen, unable to speak. Because deep inside, she knew one terrible thing. The woman was right. There was one part of that night, one secret, she had never told anyone. Iris remained standing in the parking lot long after the woman returned to her car. The black sedan disappeared into the evening traffic without making a sound. Only the photograph remained in Iris's trembling hands. She stared at the smiling faces in the picture. One belonged to the girl she had lost. The other belonged to the version of herself that no longer existed. A voice pulled her back to the present. "Iris." She looked up. I was running across the parking lot, my tie loosened, my breathing uneven. The relief that crossed her face lasted only a heartbeat before she forced it away. "You came. You were not answering your phone." She looked at the screen. 6 missed calls. I did not hear it. I slowed as I reached her. "Are you all right?" She nodded too quickly. "Yes." "You're lying." "I am just tired." I noticed the photograph partly hidden behind her hand. "What is that?" She instinctively moved it behind her back. "Nothing important." I studied her face. Her eyes were red. She had been crying. "Iris." She forced a smile. "Can we go somewhere else?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Of course." Half an hour later, we sat beside a quiet lake on the edge of the city. The evening breeze rippled across the water. Children laughed in the distance. Everything around us felt peaceful. Everything between us did not. I handed her a bottle of water. She accepted it without speaking. After several minutes, she finally broke the silence. "Do you trust me?" The question surprised me. "Yes." You answered too quickly. I did not need to think. She looked down at the ring. "What if I told you there are things about my past that I have never shared with anyone?" "I would wait until you were ready." "What if those things made you hate me?" "I do not believe they would." "You cannot know that." "I know you." She looked at me with an expression I could not quite understand. "You barely know me." "I know enough." "You always say that." "Because it is true." Her eyes filled with tears again. She quickly looked toward the lake so I would not notice. I noticed anyway. Without saying a word, I moved a little closer. Not touching. Just close enough that she would not feel alone. After a long silence, she quietly said, "Thank you for not forcing me." Across the city, inside the Ashcroft estate, another conversation was unfolding. My mother stood in the library, speaking with someone over the phone. "Has she contacted him?" A man's voice answered. "No." "Good. What about the photographs?" "He has already received them." "And the witness?" "She met Iris today." My mother closed her eyes. "Excellent." The man hesitated. "Are you certain this is necessary?" "I am protecting my daughter. By destroying another woman, I am preventing a mistake." The call ended. She walked toward the window. Outside, rain clouds gathered over the city. She whispered to herself, "If Rowan learns the truth before it is too late, she will walk away on her own." The following morning, Iris arrived at work determined to act as though nothing had happened. She almost succeeded, until Director Evelyn Hart asked her to come into her office. The room was quiet. The blinds were closed. A single folder rested on the desk. Evelyn gestured toward the chair. "Please sit." Iris obeyed. The director folded her hands. I met your fiancé yesterday. You did. He seems like a good alpha. He is. Evelyn smiled faintly. You care about him. Iris remained silent. I have watched you for 3 years. The older woman leaned forward. You smile differently when you speak about Rowan. A blush spread across Iris's cheeks. It is only an arrangement. Is it? Iris looked away. I do not know anymore. Evelyn opened the folder. Inside was a visa approval document. Iris stared at it in disbelief. My application. It has been approved. She blinked. But it was denied. It was reviewed again this morning. Her hands began to shake. So I can stay. You can. The room suddenly felt impossibly quiet. This was the moment she had been hoping for. The reason she had agreed to the fake engagement. She should have been celebrating. Instead, panic settled deep inside her chest. Because approval meant the agreement had reached its end. She no longer needed to pretend. The thought hurt far more than she expected. Evelyn watched her carefully. You are not happy. I should be. But. Iris looked at the ring. If my visa is approved. She could not finish the sentence. The director completed it for her. You will have to give him back his ring. A single tear rolled down Iris's face. She whispered so quietly that it was almost impossible to hear. I do not think I want to. That evening, I invited Iris to dinner. Not at an expensive restaurant. Not at a formal event. Just a small family-owned place overlooking the river. She arrived wearing a simple white blouse. The ring still rested on her finger. She smiled when she saw me. I like this place. I hoped you would. We spent 2 hours talking about everything except the engagement. Books, music, travel, childhood memories. For the first time, we forgot we were pretending. As we walked along the river afterward, she suddenly stopped. There is something I need to tell you. I turned toward her. She took a slow breath. My visa was approved today. I smiled. That is wonderful. It means. I know. The words hung heavily between us. She looked down at the ring. I should probably give this back. I reached for her hand. Neither of us moved. Neither of us wanted to break the moment. Then, before either of us could speak again, a sharp voice echoed from across the street. There they are. Several cameras flashed at once. Reporters rushed toward us. Microphones stretched into our faces. When is the wedding? Are the rumors true? Miss Holloway, are you pregnant? Miss Ashcroft, is the engagement ending? Questions flew from every direction. I instinctively stepped in front of Iris. She grabbed my hand tightly. Another camera flashed. Then, through the crowd, I noticed someone watching from the opposite sidewalk. The same cold gray eyes. The same woman from Iris's past. She smiled, then mouthed 4 silent words. Tell her the truth. I looked back at Iris. Her face had gone completely pale. She was not afraid of the reporters. She was afraid of the woman watching us. And for the first time, I realized the danger surrounding Iris had never truly ended. The reporters surrounded us so quickly that there was barely any room to breathe. Questions came from every direction. Miss Ashcroft, have your parents approved the engagement? Miss Holloway, when is the ceremony? Is it true the Ashcroft family plans to announce the wedding this month? Camera flashes lit up the street like lightning. Iris's grip on my hand tightened. I could feel her fingers trembling. Without thinking, I stepped closer to her. Enough, I said firmly. We are not answering questions tonight. A reporter pushed forward. Then, is the engagement real? I looked at Iris. She looked back at me. For one brief second, the world disappeared. Yes, I answered. It is. The crowd erupted with excitement. More cameras flashed. I guided Iris toward the waiting car. Clara, who had driven over after my hurried message, jumped out and opened the rear door. Get in, she said. We climbed inside just as security arrived to hold the reporters back. The car pulled away. Only after several blocks did either of us speak. You should not have said that, Iris whispered. It stopped them. It made the lie bigger. I looked at her. Did it feel like a lie? She opened her mouth. No words came. Instead, she turned toward the window, hiding the tears gathering in her eyes. The silence continued until we reached her apartment. She reached for the door handle. "Iris." She paused. "I meant what I said." She looked back. "What part?" "That you do not have to face any of this alone." Her expression softened. "You make it very difficult to remember this is temporary." Before I could answer, she quietly stepped out of the car. She stood on the sidewalk for a moment. Then she lifted one hand in a small wave before disappearing into the building. I remained there long after the entrance doors had closed. Clara glanced at me through the mirror. "You are in love." I laughed without humor. "That obvious." "You looked ready to fight an entire city for her." I leaned back in the seat. "I am not sure when it happened." "Does it matter?" "No. It only matters whether she feels the same." I looked toward the apartment windows. "I think she is trying very hard not to." Inside her apartment, Iris closed the door and slid down against it. The ring felt heavier than ever. She removed it, held it in her palm, stared at it. Then, after only a few seconds, she slipped it back onto her finger. "I cannot," she whispered to herself. A knock echoed through the apartment. Her heart skipped. She opened the door. Director Evelyn Hart stood outside holding a paper bag. "I brought dinner." Iris smiled weakly. "You did not have to." "I know." They sat together at the small dining table. For several minutes they ate in comfortable silence. Finally, Evelyn spoke. "I received a call this afternoon." "From whom?" "The woman who has been looking for you." Iris slowly put down her fork. "What did she want?" "She asked whether your visa had been approved." "And?" I did not answer. Another long silence followed. Then Evelyn quietly asked, "How much does Rowan know?" "Almost nothing." "Will you tell him?" "I want to. But I am afraid." Evelyn reached across the table. "You cannot build a future on hidden truths." Iris closed her eyes. "I know. But every time I try." Her voice broke. I see that night all over again. The next morning began with another surprise. I arrived at my office to find Celeste Everett waiting in the reception area. She stood as I approached. "I hope I am not interrupting." "I was not expecting you." "I know." We entered my office. She remained standing near the window. "I came because I owe you an apology." "For what?" "My family supported the idea of arranging our marriage." "You had no choice." "I did." She smiled sadly. "I simply lacked the courage to refuse." I looked at her carefully. "Why tell me now?" "Because after meeting you." She hesitated. "I realized you were already looking at someone else." I sighed. "I never meant to involve you." "You did not." She reached into her handbag and placed a business card on my desk. "If either of you ever need legal assistance." I picked it up. "You became a lawyer." "I specialize in criminal appeals." Something about those words caught my attention. "Criminal appeals." She nodded. "I recently accepted a rather unusual case." "What case?" She met my eyes. "The bookstore incident from 6 years ago." Every muscle in my body went still. "You know about it." "I know much more than you do." "What does that mean?" She took a slow breath. "The man convicted of the murder has requested a new trial." I stared at her. That case was closed. So everyone believed. She lowered her voice. "But new evidence has appeared." My heartbeat quickened. "What evidence?" "I cannot tell you." "Why?" "Because the court has sealed it." She paused. "But I can tell you one thing." "What?" "The person in the greatest danger is not the man in prison." She looked directly at me. "It is Iris." That evening, I drove straight to Iris's apartment. She opened the door before I could knock twice. The moment she saw my face, she knew something was wrong. "What happened?" "We need to talk." She stepped aside. I entered. The apartment felt warm and familiar. Too peaceful for the conversation we were about to have. "I met Celeste today." Iris's expression changed immediately. "Why?" "She is involved in your old case." The color drained from her face. "No." She said there is going to be another trial. The glass in Iris's hand slipped from her fingers. It shattered across the kitchen floor. She did not even look down. She only whispered one sentence. "They found it." "What?" "The evidence." I moved closer. What evidence? She slowly lifted her eyes to meet mine. Fear filled every part of her expression. The evidence that proves. Her voice trembled. I was not only a witness that night. A heavy silence filled the room. Then, barely above a whisper, she confessed the words that changed everything. I was the reason my best friend died. The words hung between us like a storm that refused to break. I was the reason my best friend died. For several seconds, I could not speak. Not because I believed she was guilty, because I could see how long she had carried those words alone. The shattered glass remained scattered across the kitchen floor. Neither of us moved. Finally, I stepped around the broken pieces and stopped in front of her. Tell me everything. She lowered her head. You should leave. I am not leaving. You will after you hear the truth. Iris. She looked at me with eyes full of fear. I have spent 6 years imagining this conversation. And, in every version, she forced a bitter smile. You walked away. I reached for her trembling hands. I cannot promise how I will feel. She closed her eyes. But I promise I will listen. For the first time that evening, she nodded. She led me to the small living room. Rain tapped gently against the windows. The room felt strangely quiet, almost as though the entire world had paused to hear her story. My best friend was named Lily. A soft smile appeared on her face. She was loud, stubborn, always late, and completely incapable of whispering. I smiled faintly. You loved her. She was the sister I never had. Her smile slowly disappeared. That night, we closed the bookstore together. She folded her hands tightly. The man who came inside was not looking for Lily. I frowned. You said he was. I lied. The confession landed heavily. He came looking for me. I remained silent. He believed I had stolen something from him. What? I did not know. He kept shouting that I had ruined everything. She took a slow breath. Lily stepped between us. I could almost picture it. Lily told him to leave. He refused. The argument became louder. She looked down at her hands. I should have run. But I stayed. Why? Because I thought I could calm him. Her voice cracked. I was wrong. A tear rolled down her cheek. He pulled out a knife. The room seemed to grow colder. Lily pushed me away. The words came more slowly now. She told me to run. But I froze. I could not move. She covered her face. If I had moved, if I had listened, Lily would still be alive. I quietly asked, what happened after that? The police arrived. They arrested him. I gave my statement. But she lowered her hands. I never told them he came for me. Why? Because I received a letter 2 days later. She stood and walked toward a bookshelf. From behind several old novels, she removed a faded envelope. She handed it to me. The paper had yellowed with age. There was no signature. Only a single sentence. If you tell anyone the truth, someone else dies. I looked up. You kept this. I burned every other reminder. But I could never burn that. Did you show it to the police? She slowly shook her head. I believed they had already caught him. So I stayed silent. She looked away. That silence has followed me every day since. I placed the letter back into the envelope. Iris. She spoke before I could. I know what you are thinking. You do. You are wondering whether I made the wrong choice. I took one step closer. No. She looked surprised. I am wondering why a 19-year-old girl believed she had to carry this alone. Her eyes widened. You. She stopped. You are not angry. I am angry. Her shoulders fell. But not at you. I gently took the envelope. I am angry at whoever convinced you that surviving made you responsible. The tears she had been holding back finally escaped. She began crying without making a sound. The kind of crying that came after years of pretending to be strong. Without hesitation, I wrapped my arms around her. For a moment she remained completely still. Then she buried her face against my shoulder. I am so tired, she whispered. I know. I do not want to keep running. You do not have to. She held on to me as though I were the only solid thing left in her world. Neither of us noticed how long we remained that way. Across the city, Inside a quiet office overlooking the river, the woman with gray eyes sat across from another visitor. She placed a thin file on the table. The visitor opened it. Inside were copies of the same photographs taken of Iris and me. The visitor smiled. They have become close. They are already in love. The gray-eyed woman nodded. That makes the next step easier. The visitor looked up. Are you certain Rowan does not know? He knows enough to stay, but not enough to survive. The visitor closed the file. When do we tell him? The woman smiled coldly. Not yet. She looked out toward the city lights. First, I want Iris to believe she finally found happiness. The following afternoon, Clara entered my office carrying another package. No return address. Again. I immediately opened it. Inside was a small wooden box. Nothing else. I lifted the lid. Resting inside was an old silver pendant stained by age. Attached was a folded note. My hands became cold as I unfolded it. Ask Iris why she still keeps the other half. I stared at the pendant. There was a clean break across one side. It had clearly once been part of something larger. I picked up my phone. Before I could call Iris, another message appeared. Unknown number. She never told you about the necklace because she still visits the place where Lily died every year. A second message arrived almost immediately. Go there tonight if you want the truth. I looked at the address. It was the old bookstore. The place where everything had begun. I had no idea whether the messages were genuine or another attempt to manipulate us. But one thing was certain. Someone desperately wanted me to uncover a truth that Iris had spent 6 years trying to bury. The address stayed on my phone screen during the entire drive. Every instinct told me it could be a trap. Every thought about Iris told me I had to go anyway. The old bookstore stood at the end of a quiet street that most people had forgotten. The sign above the entrance had faded with time. Dust covered the display windows. The building had been empty for years. Rain had stopped only minutes earlier, leaving the pavement glistening beneath the streetlights. I parked across the road. For a moment, I simply watched. Nothing moved. Then I noticed a single bouquet of fresh white lilies resting beside the front door. Someone had been here. I crossed the street slowly. The flowers were still damp. They could not have been there for long. A soft voice came from behind me. I wondered if you would come. I turned. Iris stood several steps away. She wore a dark coat, her hair gently stirred by the evening wind. She looked neither surprised nor angry, only tired. You knew I would receive the message. She nodded. They send one every year. They. She looked toward the abandoned bookstore. I never learned who all of them are. You think more than one person has been watching you. I know they have. I looked at the bouquet. You come here every year. Every year. She walked to the entrance and knelt beside the flowers. Lily loved these. For several moments, neither of us spoke. The silence felt respectful, almost sacred. Finally, I sat beside her on the worn stone step. You should have told me. I wanted to. What stopped you? She smiled sadly. The fear that this would become the first place where you looked at me differently. I reached into my pocket and removed the broken silver pendant. Her eyes widened immediately. Where did you get that? It was sent to me. She stared at it as though she had seen a ghost. I have not seen this in 6 years. It belongs to you. It belonged to both of us. She slowly reached beneath her sweater. A thin silver chain appeared around her neck. Hanging from it was another half of the same pendant. The two broken edges matched perfectly. I looked at her. Lily had the other half. She nodded. We bought them together on her birthday. She gently held her half. We promised we would never lose them. A tear rolled down her cheek. I guess promises do not always survive. I carefully placed the second half into her hand. For a long moment, she simply stared at the reunited pendant. Then she closed her fingers around both pieces. I never thought I would see it again. Do you know who sent it? She slowly shook her head. No, but whoever did. She looked toward the dark windows of the bookstore. They want me to remember something. Before either of us could continue, a car door slammed somewhere behind the building. We both stood. Footsteps echoed through the narrow alley beside the bookstore. Someone was there. I instinctively stepped in front of Iris. A woman emerged from the shadows. She was older than Iris by perhaps 10 years. Short black hair, sharp eyes, a long gray coat. She stopped several meters away. So, her gaze settled on me. You are Rowan. I kept my voice calm. Who are you? My name is Naomi Carter. The name meant nothing to me. It clearly meant something to Iris. Her breathing caught. You. Naomi gave a small nod. It has been a long time. I looked between them. You know each other. Naomi answered first. I investigated Lily's death. My heart skipped. You are a detective. I was. She looked at Iris with unmistakable regret. I retired shortly after the case ended. Why are you here? Naomi reached into her coat pocket and removed a thick folder. Because I made the biggest mistake of my career. The words hung in the air. Iris whispered. What do you mean? Naomi handed the folder to me. I arrested the right man. She paused. But for the wrong reason. I opened the folder. Inside were photographs, evidence reports, witness statements. Then one document caught my attention. Across the top, stamped in red, were 2 words. Case reopened. I looked up. Why? Naomi's expression hardened. Because someone changed the evidence before the trial. A cold chill ran through me. You mean? The original investigation was manipulated. Iris took one shaky step backward. No. Naomi nodded slowly. I only discovered it 3 months ago. Who changed it? I do not know. But whoever did. She looked directly at Iris. They wanted everyone to believe the attack happened randomly. It did. Naomi's eyes filled with sorrow. No. She took a slow breath. Lily was never the target. The words landed like thunder. Iris stared at her. I already know that. Naomi gently shook her head. No. You still do not understand. She looked at me. The man who entered the bookstore was not looking for Iris either. The world seemed to stop. What? Naomi pointed toward the abandoned building. He came looking for something hidden inside that bookstore. Neither of us spoke. She continued. Lily found it first. Iris's face turned completely white. That is impossible. I thought so too. Naomi reached into the folder once more. She removed an old photograph taken inside the bookstore office. Pinned to the wall behind the counter was a small safe. Its door stood open. Empty. Naomi quietly said. Whatever was inside disappeared before the police arrived. I looked at Iris. She looked just as confused as I felt. I never saw a safe. You were never meant to. Naomi lowered her voice. And that missing item. She looked from Iris to me. Is the real reason someone has been watching both of you. A sudden noise echoed from the rooftop above us. All 3 of us looked up. A dark figure stood against the night sky. Before anyone could react, the figure threw something over the edge. It landed at our feet with a metallic sound. A flash drive. The figure disappeared into the darkness. Naomi picked it up slowly. There was a single label attached. For Rowan and Iris. Open together. Before they find you first. The night had just become far more dangerous than either of us had imagined. For several long seconds, none of us touched the flash drive. It rested on the wet pavement between us, reflecting the pale glow of the streetlights. Naomi finally broke the silence. We should not examine it here. I nodded. Someone could still be watching. They are, Iris whispered. We all looked toward the rooftops. The figure had vanished. Only darkness remained. Naomi slipped the flash drive into her coat pocket. I know a place where no one will think to look. An hour later, we arrived at a small cabin hidden deep inside a forest preserve outside the city. The cabin belonged to Naomi. There was no internet connection. No security cameras. No nearby houses. If someone wants this drive, Naomi said as she locked the door, they will have a difficult time finding it tonight. She placed an old laptop on the wooden table. The room was lit only by a single lamp. Outside, rain began falling again. Naomi inserted the flash drive. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then a single folder appeared. It contained one video file. No title. No date. No sender. Naomi clicked it. Static filled the screen. Then the image cleared. The video showed the inside of the old bookstore. The quality was poor, but recognizable. "It is security footage," Naomi whispered. Iris covered her mouth. "I thought the cameras never worked." "They did," Naomi replied quietly. "The recordings were reported as corrupted." The video continued. The timestamp showed the night Lily died. I felt Iris tense beside me. "I do not want to watch this," she whispered. I gently took her hand. "You do not have to." She looked at me, then slowly shook her head. "No. I have been running from this night for too long." The recording played. Lily and Iris were laughing while closing the store. They looked so young, so carefree. Then the front door opened. A man entered. His face was partially hidden beneath a cap. He walked directly toward the counter. The argument began, exactly as Iris had described. Then something unexpected happened. The man never looked at Iris. Not once. His eyes remained fixed on Lily. Naomi paused the video. "You see." Iris stared at the frozen image. "No." Her voice trembled. "That cannot be right." Naomi rewound the footage. Again. The same result. The man ignored Iris. He followed Lily's movements instead. Iris's breathing became uneven. I remembered it differently. Naomi looked at her with compassion. Trauma changes memory. The recording continued. Lily glanced nervously toward the back office. The man noticed. He grabbed her arm. She pulled away. Then she shouted something. There was no audio. Only silent images. "What did she say?" I asked. Iris closed her eyes. "I cannot remember." The struggle became violent. Lily shoved Iris toward the emergency exit. Iris stumbled backward. Then the camera suddenly flickered. The screen went black for exactly 23 seconds. When the picture returned, Lily was lying on the floor. The attacker was gone. The police had not yet arrived. Naomi stopped the recording. The missing 23 seconds. They were removed. I looked at her. Someone edited the footage. She nodded. The original recording was altered before it reached the evidence room. Iris looked completely lost. "So, I never knew what happened." Naomi quietly answered. "Neither did I." The room fell silent. Then another file appeared automatically. None of us had clicked anything. The laptop screen changed on its own. A text document opened. 3 words appeared. "Keep watching." Naomi frowned. I did not open this. The document disappeared. Another video began. This one was much shorter. A woman sat in front of the camera. She looked exhausted. Older than Iris. Younger than Naomi. The date showed 3 days after Lily's death. Iris gasped. "I know her." "Who is she?" "My manager. The bookstore manager." The woman looked directly into the camera. "If anyone ever finds this." She took a shaky breath. "It means I was right." She reached off screen and held up a small black notebook. "Lily found this hidden inside the store safe." Iris whispered. "The safe." The manager continued. "I told the police. But they refused to take it. I think someone inside the department has already been paid." She looked terrified. "So I am hiding the notebook. If anything happens to me." She swallowed. "Find Rowan Ashcroft." I stared at the screen. "What?" The manager continued. "Only the Ashcroft family has enough power to expose them." The video ended. None of us moved. Finally, I spoke. "My family." Naomi slowly nodded. "I never knew about this recording." I looked at Iris. Why would she mention my family? "I do not know." My phone suddenly vibrated. No caller identification. I answered. "Hello." A calm female voice replied. "You finally found the videos." Every muscle in my body tensed. "Who is this?" "You have been asking the wrong questions." "What do you want?" "I want you alive." I looked at Naomi. She was already trying to trace the number through another device. The woman continued. "The notebook is real." "Where is it?" "If I tell you." Her voice softened. "They will kill all 3 of you." "Who?" A brief silence followed. Then she quietly answered. "The people who ordered Lily's death." The call disconnected. Naomi slammed her hand against the table. "They used another relay." No location. I looked toward Iris. She had become completely still. Her eyes were fixed on the final frame of the video. The image had frozen just before it ended. There, reflected in a glass cabinet behind the bookstore manager, stood a woman watching from the doorway. Only part of her face was visible. Gray eyes. Dark coat. Iris whispered the name before anyone else recognized her. It is her. The woman who keeps following me. Naomi leaned closer to the screen. Her face lost all color. No. What? Naomi slowly stepped backward. I arrested her. What? 6 years ago. Iris stared at her in disbelief. But Naomi looked at both of us with horror. I watched her go to prison. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. So how has she been walking free this entire time? No one spoke after Naomi's question. The rain outside struck the cabin windows in steady waves, filling the silence with a dull rhythm. I looked at the frozen image on the laptop again. The reflection was unmistakable. Gray eyes. Dark coat. The same woman who had confronted Iris. The same woman who had watched us from across the street. The same woman Naomi insisted had been sent to prison 6 years ago. There has to be another explanation, I said. Naomi slowly shook her head. I spent 20 years investigating crimes. I know the difference between a resemblance and the same person. Iris wrapped her arms around herself. Then how? Naomi stared at the screen. Someone either helped her disappear, or she hesitated. I arrested the wrong woman. The possibility settled over us like a heavy shadow. Before anyone could speak again, the lights inside the cabin flickered. Once, twice. Then everything went dark. Only the rain remained. I instinctively reached for Iris. My hand found hers. She squeezed it tightly. Naomi quietly opened a drawer and removed a flashlight. The narrow beam cut through the darkness. The power should not have gone out, she whispered. This area has its own backup line. A loud sound echoed outside. Crunch. Someone had stepped on wet gravel. All 3 of us froze. Another step. Closer this time. Naomi lowered her voice. We are not alone. She quietly handed me a heavy metal fire poker resting beside the fireplace. Just in case. I nodded. The footsteps stopped directly outside the front door. Then came 3 slow knocks. No one answered. Another 3 knocks. A woman's voice drifted through the wood. I know you're inside. Iris immediately recognized it. Her fingers tightened around mine. It is her. The gray-eyed woman. Naomi motioned for silence. The woman continued speaking. I did not come to hurt you. No one moved. I came because you only have 1 hour. My heartbeat quickened. 1 hour. Until what? The woman laughed softly. I suppose you deserve proof. Something slid beneath the front door. An envelope. Then the footsteps moved away. We waited another full minute before Naomi cautiously opened the door. The yard was empty. Only fresh footprints remained in the mud. She picked up the envelope and locked the door again. Inside was a single photograph. It showed my mother, standing beside the bookstore manager. The date printed in the corner was 6 years old. I stared at it. No. Naomi looked over my shoulder. Her expression hardened. This photograph is genuine. I felt the room spinning. My mother never mentioned the bookstore. Iris looked at the picture. She knew the manager. Naomi slowly nodded. They met before Lily died. There was another item inside the envelope. A folded letter. I opened it. The handwriting was elegant. The message was short. Stop searching. The next funeral will not be accidental. No signature. No clues. Only fear. An hour later, after confirming the area was clear, Naomi insisted we return to the city separately. It will be harder to follow all of us. I drove Iris home. Neither of us spoke for most of the journey. She stared out the window. I kept replaying the photograph in my mind. My mother. The bookstore manager. 6 years ago. None of it made sense. As we reached her apartment building, she finally broke the silence. Do you believe the photograph? I do. She looked down. Then, she struggled to finish the sentence. You must be wondering whether your family had something to do with everything. I gripped the steering wheel. I do not know what to think. She nodded slowly. I understand. Before getting out, she looked at me. Whatever happens. Thank you. For what? For believing me when I could not believe myself. She leaned closer. Very gently. She kissed my cheek. It lasted only a second. Yet it stole every thought from my mind. Her face turned bright red. She laughed nervously. I should go. She hurried into the building before I could respond. I touched my cheek, smiling without realizing it. The smile disappeared the moment I arrived home. The Ashcroft estate was unusually quiet. Too quiet. Inside the library, my mother sat alone, reading. She looked up as I entered. You are late. I have questions. I expected that. Without another word, I placed the old photograph on the table between us. Her eyes rested on it for less than a second. No surprise. No confusion. Only recognition. So, she already knew. You remember her. I do. Who is she? The bookstore manager. You met her. Yes. Why? She closed the book. Because she worked for our company. Every muscle in my body tensed. What? The bookstore belonged to Ashcroft Holdings. I stared at her. I never knew. You were still in university. My voice grew sharper. Then why did you hide it? To protect you. From what? She stood slowly. From learning what your grandfather built. The room became impossibly still. My grandfather. She nodded. The bookstore was never just a bookstore. I felt my pulse racing. What was it? She met my eyes. For decades. It was one of several locations used to hide confidential records. What kind of records? She looked away. The kind that could destroy powerful families. A chill ran through me. The safe. She closed her eyes. Yes, the safe. I took one step closer. What was inside? She whispered the answer. A notebook. The original financial ledger. It contained the names of every family involved. My breath caught. Involved in what? She looked back at me. Her eyes, for the first time in my life, were filled with unmistakable regret. Corruption. Bribery. Money laundering. And murder. The word echoed through the room. Then she quietly added the sentence that shattered everything I believed about my family. Your grandfather ordered Lily's death. The world seemed to stop. Your grandfather ordered Lily's death. I stared at my mother, waiting for her to tell me it was a cruel joke. She did not. The silence between us became unbearable. Finally, I forced myself to speak. You're lying. I wish I were. You expect me to believe my own grandfather ordered the murder of an innocent Omega. I expect nothing. She lowered herself back into her chair, looking far older than she had only moments before. I have spent 6 years hoping the secret would die with him. My grandfather had passed away 3 years earlier. Until that moment, I had remembered him as a respected businessman. A strict man. A demanding man. Never a murderer. You knew. Her eyes filled with tears. Yes. And you said nothing. I was trying to protect you. No. My voice echoed through the library. You were protecting the family. She closed her eyes. I was protecting both. I laughed bitterly. There is no difference anymore. I turned toward the door. Where are you going? To Iris. You cannot tell her. I stopped walking. And why not? Because she already blames herself. If she learns the truth now, my mother's voice cracked. It will destroy what little peace she has left. I looked back at her. For 6 years. She has carried guilt that never belonged to her. And you watched. A tear slipped down her cheek. I watched because I was a coward. Those words followed me as I left the mansion. For the first time in my life, I felt no attachment to the place I had once called home. 20 minutes later, I stood outside Iris's apartment. Before I could knock, the door opened. She looked surprised. Rowan. The moment she saw my face, her expression changed. What happened? I stepped inside. I know who ordered Lily's death. Her entire body went still. What? My grandfather. The color drained from her face. No. My mother admitted everything. She stared at me in complete disbelief. Then she slowly sat down on the sofa as though her legs could no longer support her. No. She whispered the word again. This cannot be true. I wish it were not. She looked at the floor. For 6 years. I believed. Her voice broke. I believed Lily died because she tried to protect me. I knelt in front of her. She did protect you. But not because of anything you did. She covered her mouth as tears began streaming down her face. I hated myself. I know. I stopped celebrating my birthday because it reminded me of her. I know. I pushed everyone away because I thought I did not deserve to be happy. I reached for her hands. You deserve every happiness this world can give you. She looked into my eyes. So do you. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she quietly asked, "What happens now?" I thought about the notebook. The missing evidence. The people still trying to silence us. We finish this. Together. She nodded. Together. The next morning, Naomi called. I found something. Half an hour later, Iris and I arrived at her office. She spread several old maps across the table. I reviewed every document connected to Ashcroft Holdings. She pointed to a small mark on one map. There was another property. A warehouse. It closed shortly after Lily died. I frowned. You think the notebook is there? I think whoever hid it wanted somewhere no one would search. She looked at both of us. There is one problem. What? The warehouse is scheduled for demolition tomorrow morning. Iris immediately stood. Then we go tonight. Naomi nodded. I hoped you would say that. Just after midnight, the three of us entered the abandoned warehouse. Dust covered everything. Broken shelves stretched into the darkness. Moonlight slipped through shattered windows. The entire building smelled of damp wood and rust. Naomi switched on a flashlight. Stay close. We searched room after room. Nothing. Old furniture. Empty boxes. Rotting files. After nearly an hour, frustration began to set in. There is nothing here, I said. Iris stopped beside a cracked concrete pillar. Wait. She brushed away years of dust. Something had been carved into the surface. 2 letters. L. I. Lily. I whispered. Iris looked around carefully. She left this. Naomi examined the floor. There is fresh concrete here. Different from the rest. We found a heavy crowbar nearby. Together, we pried at the concrete slab. It finally shifted. Beneath it lay a small metal box. My heartbeat quickened. I lifted it out carefully. The lock had rusted away. Inside rested a single black notebook. Exactly as the manager had described. Iris reached toward it with shaking hands. We found it. Before anyone could celebrate, slow applause echoed through the warehouse. All 3 of us turned. Several figures emerged from the darkness. 6 people, all dressed in black. The gray-eyed woman stepped forward. She smiled calmly. I was beginning to think you would never find it. Naomi raised the flashlight. You followed us. I did. The woman looked at the notebook. Thank you for saving me the trouble. She extended one hand. Now, give it to me. I stepped in front of Iris. No. The woman sighed. I hoped you would make this easy. She nodded toward the shadows. One of the masked figures raised a pistol. Iris instinctively moved closer to me. The woman smiled again. You have 1 minute. Hand over the notebook. Or the alpha dies first. The warehouse fell completely silent. The masked figure kept the pistol pointed directly at my chest. I tightened my grip on the notebook. Iris stepped beside me instead of behind me. No. Her voice was steady. If anyone dies tonight, it will not be because of that notebook. The gray-eyed woman smiled. You have always been stubborn. Iris met her gaze without flinching. I learned from surviving you. Naomi quietly shifted to our left, drawing the attention of 2 masked figures. The woman noticed. Do not be clever, Naomi. I have already made that mistake once. Naomi answered calmly. I will not make it again. The woman sighed. I suppose there is no avoiding this. She nodded once. The armed figure took another step forward. At that exact moment, a loud siren echoed outside the warehouse. Then another. Blue and red lights flashed through the broken windows. Every masked figure froze. The gray-eyed woman's confident smile disappeared for the first time. She turned sharply toward Naomi. "You called them." Naomi smiled. "I retired. I did not become foolish." While the woman had been talking to us outside the cabin the previous night, Naomi had quietly sent every file, every photograph, every video, and every piece of evidence to a trusted investigator she had worked with for years. She had expected tonight to become dangerous. The sound of police vehicles grew louder. Several masked figures panicked and ran toward the rear exit. The gray-eyed woman glared at us. "This is not over." She turned to escape. Iris suddenly stepped forward. "It ends tonight." The woman looked back. For the first time, there was no fear in Iris's eyes. Only determination. "You spent 6 years making me believe Lily died because of me. You stole my peace. You stole my future." She held up the broken pendant, now joined together again. "But you could not steal her memory." The woman's expression hardened. "You still do not understand." "No," Iris replied quietly. "I finally do." Police officers rushed into the warehouse from every entrance. The masked figures were quickly surrounded. The gray-eyed woman attempted to run, but Naomi intercepted her path. "You are under arrest." The woman laughed bitterly. "You cannot prove anything." Naomi looked toward me. I opened the notebook. Every page was filled with handwritten names, bank accounts, payments, hidden companies, and detailed records spanning decades. Near the final pages was one signature, my grandfather's. Below it were several others, including the gray-eyed woman's. Her face lost all color. She lunged toward the notebook. Before she could reach it, officers restrained her. As they placed handcuffs around her wrists, she stared directly at Iris. "I never hated you." Iris frowned. "Then why?" The woman smiled sadly. "Because Lily trusted you. And she never trusted me." For the first time since we had met her, the woman's mask of confidence broke. There was bitterness, jealousy, regret. Then she was led away without another word. The investigation lasted for months. The notebook exposed decades of corruption. Business leaders resigned. Officials were arrested. Hidden financial networks collapsed. Families that had believed themselves untouchable finally faced justice. The bookstore manager's recording became one of the most important pieces of evidence. Lily's name was officially cleared. The investigation concluded that she had died protecting evidence that could expose a criminal network, not because of anything Iris had done. When the announcement became public, Iris cried harder than she had the night she first told me about Lily. Not from grief, from relief. 6 years of guilt finally lifted from her shoulders. The Ashcroft family changed forever. I resigned as chief executive. Not because I was forced to. Because I refused to build my future on wealth connected to innocent lives. The company was placed under independent management while investigations continued. My mother publicly admitted what she had hidden. She accepted responsibility for her silence. Our relationship would never be the same. But for the first time, it was honest. Sometimes honesty arrives too late. Sometimes it still matters. Months passed peacefully. Iris returned to translating legal documents. Only now she also volunteered to help victims of violent crimes navigate the legal system. She wanted no one else to carry guilt that was never theirs. Naomi occasionally joined her. Together they reopened several forgotten cases. Lily's memory became a reason to help others instead of a reason to hide. One autumn afternoon, nearly a year after everything had ended, Iris and I returned to the botanical garden. The same place where our fake engagement had begun. The flowers were blooming again. The glass ceiling reflected a clear blue sky. Everything felt different. No reporters. No lies. No fear. Only us. I smiled. "Do you remember?" She laughed. "You were so nervous." I was not. "You checked your watch at least 10 times. I checked it twice. It was definitely more than twice." We laughed together. Then I reached into my pocket. Iris noticed immediately. Her smile slowly faded. "You kept it." "I always intended to." I opened the familiar velvet box. The same diamond ring rested inside. She looked at it quietly, then back at me. I gently took her left hand. 1 year ago, I asked you to pretend. You said everything would change if you agreed. She smiled through gathering tears. You were right. I was. I took a slow breath. This time, there is no visa, no reporters, no arrangement, no pretending. Her amber eyes filled with tears. Iris Holloway, I love you. I loved you long before I admitted it to myself. You once asked what would happen when the agreement ended. I slipped the ring from her finger. She looked down. A single tear rolled across her cheek. For one painful heartbeat, she believed this was goodbye. The title of our story became real. She cried when I took the ring off. Then I smiled. I picked up a second ring, one we had chosen together only days earlier. A ring that belonged to no contract. No lie. No obligation. Only love. I slid it gently onto her finger. Will you marry me? She laughed through her tears. You idiot. I thought you were leaving. I am. She blinked. What? I am leaving. I stepped even closer. Every version of my life that existed before you. She wrapped both arms around me. Her forehead rested against mine. You took the old ring away, so you could give me the real one. Exactly. She kissed me softly. I have waited an entire year to answer this honestly. She smiled the same warm smile that had first captured my heart. Yes. Always yes. Around us, people applauded. Someone wiped away happy tears. An elderly woman lifted a camera. It was the same woman who had accidentally photographed our fake engagement 1 year earlier. She laughed. I knew you two would make it. This time, we laughed with her. There was nothing left to hide. Nothing left to pretend. Only two women who had found each other after surviving grief, fear, and impossible choices. Our story had begun with a lie told to save a future. It ended with a promise that needed no lies at all. Sometimes the strongest love is not the one that begins perfectly. Sometimes it is the one that survives every secret, every wound, and every impossible truth, until pretending becomes the only thing left behind.